Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well today. In this video, let's talk about how the new schedule works. While I'll start with a brief overview, I'll go into some more details later in the video. For starters, we have a 4-day rotation of classes broken down into A, B, C, and D days. During each of these days, there are going to be 8 different periods, where 2 of these 8 periods consist of lunch and pause. Besides lunch and pause, there will be 6 different classes you'll take. Something new that you'll get used to are these P1 to P6 classes. Each of these classes are required, and you'll only take one at a time throughout the school year. Roughly every 6 weeks, you'll switch from P1 to P2, P2 to P3, and so on and so forth. Not necessarily in this order, each student will take these 6 classes of 3 PE sections: swimming, health, and racial literacy. And finally, there are the EP classes. Typically, students will be able to take 3 EPs in the first semester or first half of the school year, and 3 in the second semester or second half of the school year. In summary, we have a 4-day rotation. You'll have these P1 to P6 classes, but you really only have to worry about P1 at the beginning of the school year. You'll be able to take EP classes, and you just have to look for the S1 on your schedule for the beginning of the school year. And you'll also find lunch and pause on your schedule. Here's what you'll find in the rest of this video. In part 1, I'll go over the colorful schedule you'll find on PowerSchool that's written horizontally. In part 2, I'll go over the vertical schedule you can find on PowerSchool, but you'll also be given that when you come to school. In part 3, I'll go over a template that hopefully simplifies your schedule so it's easier to understand and follow. In part 4, I'll go over an example with a 6th grade schedule. In part 5, I'll go over an example with a 7th grade schedule. And finally, in part 6, I'll go over an example with an 8th grade schedule. Let's get into it. So, logging onto PowerSchool, you'll initially see a schedule that looks something like this. While this particular schedule is a 6th graders, 7th and 8th graders will look pretty similar. You can see the 4 different days of A, B, C, and D days located here. And the 8 different periods of the day are going across this table. And while it's different for 7th and 8th grade, 6th graders are going to have lunch 4th period and pause 8th period. Every 6th, 7th, and 8th grader will have lunch and pause during their day. I know you can't read any of this text right now, so let's zoom in and take a closer look at the A and B day schedule. Starting off the school year for this student, these are the 8 classes that this student will have. For 2nd period, notice how I crossed out 5 different classes because this student will have those other classes throughout the year. Each of these particular classes, these P1 to P6 classes, will last about 6 weeks each. During 7th period, these classes are each 1 semester long or half a year each. While the required P1 to P6 classes will rotate about every 6 weeks during the school year, the EPs during period 7 for this student are going to rotate halfway through the year. And looking at a B day from left to right, these would be the 8 different classes this student would have. Hopefully making this a little bit easier to read, this would be the schedule for this student on A and B days for the first 6th of the school year. This is their schedule for the second 6th of the school year. This is the schedule for the third 6th of the school year. And at this point, we've reached the halfway point of the school year. So notice how the EPs are going to switch as we reach the 4th 6th of the school year, or 2/3 of the school year. This is what they'll follow for the 5th part of the school year. And finally, here's their schedule for the 6th part of the school year. Basically, each of these classes are in the first half of the school year, while all of these classes are in the second half of the school year. Let's take a look at C and D days. Splitting up the school year into 6 different parts, this is what they'll follow for the first part. This is their schedule for the second part, the third part, the fourth part, which is the second half of the school year, the 5th part, and the 6th part. First half, second half. So we just looked at that horizontal schedule from left to right, but here's another version of it going top down. Let's go over how to read it. These course section numbers aren't important, so let's just get rid of them. Over here, you can see the names of the courses, and this is the part of the school year where you'll take these courses. 21-22 means the class lasts the entire school year, the P1 to P6 classes rotate, and S1 and S2 are both half-year classes. To begin the year, you just need to know what your P1 class is, and your 3 EPs that say S1 or are in the beginning of the year. And remember, choir doesn't say S1 because it's technically a full year EP. These are all the names of your teachers as well as where they are located. And to the right, you can see the start date of each of these classes and the end date. For the P1 to P6 classes, you can see the dates rotate about every 6 to 7 weeks. To start the school year, let's ignore P2 to P6. Let's just focus on the classes that you'll have at the start of the school year. And with that, let's ignore any of the S2 classes because you won't have them until the second half of the year. Basically, just focus on your P1 class and your EPs that are in semester 1. These classes will come later. All the way on the left, let's see when you have each of these classes. For example, when you see English is on 1A, 3C, and 2D, this means that on A days, you're going to have English during period 1, on C days, you're going to have English during period 3, and on D days, you're going to have English during period 2. In this 4-day rotation cycle, you're going to have this one class of English 3 times. And each time you have English, it's going to be during a different period. In each A, B, C, D cycle, you're going to have each of these classes 3 times, these classes 2 times, and these classes 4 times. Hopefully, this schedule makes a little bit more sense now. Up next, let's fill in a really easy template together for a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade schedule. Hopefully that'll be a lot easier to use and get you where you need to go. These are the templates I was talking about earlier. If you can just fill out one of these templates, you'll know where to go on each of the A, B, C, and D days. While lunch and EPs are at different times of the day, all 3 grades will still follow the A, B, C, and D day rotation. As long as you know the classes you need to go to on A days, B days, C days, and D days, you'll be good to go. Next, I'm going to show you how to fill out this template for a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade schedule. Here's that same 6th grade schedule we looked at earlier. From the top down, let's call English Class 1. We'll group all the P1 to P6s as Class 2, Social Studies as Class 3, Science as Class 4, Pre-Algebra as Class 5, and Spanish as Class 6. Basically, we've covered all the classes except for EPs, lunch, and pause so far. We'll group these two as EP slot 1, these 2 classes as EP slot 2, and this class as EP slot 3. While the first 2 pairs switch off halfway through the year, choir lasts the entire school year. If this makes sense so far, the rest of this is going to be a little bit more straightforward. Don't worry about lunch or pause right now because they'll already be on your template. Here's a little chart that may help. If you want to skip this step, go right ahead, but if it's helpful, feel free to use it. Notice how this table has Class 1 through Class 6 and EP slot 1 to EP slot 3. Go ahead and fill out when you have each of these classes, as well as where they are located. Once you've taken care of Class 1 through Class 6, you can go ahead and fill out your EP slots as well. Remember, classes 1 through 6 will happen 3 times per A, B, C, D rotation, and EPs will happen twice per each rotation. Now that we have this completed, let's fill out the template so you know where to go each day of the rotation. For the 6th grade example, let's fill in this template, which is going to be a lot easier to use and follow throughout the school year. For this student, Class 1 is English, so find all the boxes that say Class 1 and replace them with English and their room number. For Class 2, the student has all their P1 to P6 classes, focusing on P1 first. Find all the boxes that say Class 2, and replace them with that P1 class, which is PE, which is located in the gym. Class 3 is Social Studies, so find all the Class 3 boxes and replace them with Social Studies in room C103. For Class 4, we have Science, so let's go ahead and replace all the boxes that say Class 4 with Science in room E110. Then we'll go ahead and replace all the Class 5 boxes with Pre-Algebra, located in room C104, and replace all the Class 6s with Spanish in room C204. Hopefully, now that you see the template, it makes sense why we organized everything into these 6 particular classes. While each 6th grader is going to have their P1 to P6 classes in different slots, they're all going to have the same 3 EP slots during the same times of the day on the same periods. EP slot 1 is first period on D days and 6th period on B days, so let's replace those boxes with financial literacy in room B201. For EP slot 2, which is 2nd period on C days and 7th period on A days, let's replace those boxes with STEM coding and digital art in room B102. And finally, for EP slot 3, which is 3rd period on B days and 5th period on C days, let's replace those boxes with choir, which is in room A103. Once you have this template filled out, you should be good to go. Going forward, you just need to know if it's an A, B, C, or D day and just go down the column on each of those days. Now let's go through an example with a 7th grade schedule. Group all the P1 to P6 classes as Class 1, French will be Class 2, Social Studies will be Class 3, Algebra 1 Class 4, English Class 5, and Science Class 6. Choir will take our EP slot 1, Art and Drama will trade off and be EP slot 2, and STEM Robotics and Serve will trade off to be EP slot 3. Once you've labeled these 9 classes, go ahead and fill out this table below. And if it helps you to organize, remember that Class 1 through Class 6 happen 3 times per rotation, while the EP slots happen twice per rotation. Now let's take a look at the template, which you could totally skip right to if this is making a lot of sense to you. First, replace all the Class 1 boxes with P1, which is PE in the gym. Then find all the Class 2 boxes and replace them with French, which is in E205. Replace all the Class 3 boxes with Social Studies in room E115. Label the Class 4 boxes as Math in E206. Label Class 5 as English in room E213. And for Class 6, label those as Science in room E211. Next, we'll swap out the EP Slot 1 boxes for Choir in room A103, the EP Slot 2 boxes for Art in room B203, and the EP Slot 3 boxes for STEM Robotics in room B104. Hopefully, this is making a little bit more sense now. And for one more example, let's take a look at an 8th grade schedule. We'll start by going ahead and labeling each of our Class 1 through Class 6s that happen 3 times a week. And then we'll go ahead and identify our 3 EP slots. Remember that when starting the school year, you only really need to know P1 and S1 for the EPs and for the P1 to P6 classes. Then we're just going to go ahead and fill out this table below with these 9 different items. Once we have all of that organized, we can go ahead and fill out this template together. English will take the Class 1 slots, Math will take the Class 2 slots, Science will take the Class 3 slots, the P1 to P6 classes starting with P1 will take the place of Class 4, Civics will go in the Class 5 spots, and French will go in the Class 6 spots. Design and Engineering will take the 2 EP Slot 1 boxes, Financial Literacy will take the 2 EP Slot 2 boxes, and Choices will take the 2 EP Slot 3 boxes. Using this template, you now know where to go on each of the A days, B days, C days, and D days. And that wraps up this video on our new schedule at the middle school. I really do hope that this video helped you feel a little bit more comfortable with the schedule so you know where to go when you get to school. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have an amazing day and an even better school year.